6 Stoic Rules to get everything you want in life. What if the reason you still do not have what you want is not because life is against you, not because you lack talent, and not because you have not worked hard enough, but because the part of you that wants it is still desperate, still hungry for approval, still negotiating with a world that only respects inner certainty? Look around. Social media rewards performance. Workplaces reward politics. Relationships are often shaped by insecurity, timing, ego, and silent power games. People say, just be yourself, while quietly measuring status, confidence, leverage, and emotional control. That is the part no one says out loud. And yet, you feel it. You have lived it. So in this video, we are not doing empty motivation. We are not talking about manifesting harder, pretending to be unbothered, or repeating soft slogans that collapse the moment life humiliates you. We are going deeper than that. We are going to walk through 6 Stoic rules that can completely change the way you pursue your goals, protect your peace, and move through a world that is often far more artificial, manipulative, and emotionally theatrical than it first appears. And stay with me, because the final rule is the one that turns all the others into something solid. Without it, the rest are ideas. With it, they become a life. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire while carrying grief, illness, betrayal, exhaustion, and constant uncertainty. Epictetus began life as a slave and still became freer in mind than most powerful people will ever be. Seneca understood wealth, status, political danger, and the fragility of public favor. None of them taught passivity. They taught mastery. Not over the world first, but over the self that meets the world. If you have been feeling like you are always chasing love, chasing money, chasing recognition, chasing peace, then this is for you. Because the harder many people chase, the more life seems to move away from them. Not because desire is evil, but because desperation leaks. It changes your tone, your timing, your judgment, your standards, your entire presence. People can feel it. Circumstances expose it. And the world, especially the modern world, punishes emotional dependency fast. So let's rebuild this from the inside out. Rule 1: strip the glamour. Here is the first hard truth. Most people do not want the thing itself. They want the fantasy wrapped around the thing. They want the relationship because they imagine it will heal their loneliness. They want the promotion because they imagine it will finally prove they matter. They want money because they imagine it will silence every insecurity they have dragged behind them for years. They want status because they imagine respect will feel like peace. But peace and status are not the same thing. Love and rescue are not the same thing. Money and inner freedom are not the same thing. This is where Stoicism becomes brutally useful. The Stoics understood that the mind adds glamour to external things. It paints them with a glow they do not actually possess. Marcus Aurelius practiced removing that glow on purpose. He would describe attractive things in plain, stripped-down language, not to become cold, but to become accurate. Fine food becomes dead flesh seasoned well. Wine becomes fermented juice. Beauty becomes skin, bone, blood, and time. It sounds severe until you understand the purpose. He was not trying to kill joy. He was trying to kill illusion. Because illusion is expensive. It can cost you years. Think about the person who stays attached to someone unavailable, not because the relationship is healthy, but because the imagined future is intoxicating. Think about the man who destroys his nervous system trying to impress people he does not even respect. Think about the woman who keeps overworking because she thinks the next level of achievement will finally make her feel safe. This is not ambition. This is emotional projection disguised as ambition. And the modern world feeds it constantly. Advertising survives on it. Social media magnifies it. Entire industries make money by convincing you that the next thing will complete you. Better body. Better partner. Better house. Better title. Better image. Better tribe. Better proof. And underneath all of it is the same old hunger, maybe then I will be enough. Stoicism interrupts that hypnosis. So ask yourself the question most people avoid: do I truly want this thing, or do I want the identity I imagine it will give me? Do I want the job, or do I want relief from feeling ordinary? Do I want the relationship, or do I want anesthesia for abandonment? Do I want the money, or do I want to stop feeling invisible? That question is not cynical. It is liberating. Because once the glamour falls away, you can finally want things honestly. You can pursue them without worshipping them. You can desire without kneeling. And that is where power begins. Rule 2: internalize the goal. Epictetus drew one of the sharpest lines in human thought: some things are up to you, and some things are not. That sounds simple. It is not simple. It is one of the hardest things to live. Most suffering comes from building our emotional stability on outcomes we do not control. You want the promotion, but the final decision is not entirely yours. You want the client to say yes, but their timing, fears, and finances are not yours. You want someone to love you back, but their heart is not your property. You want the business to succeed, but markets shift, people disappoint, and luck enters every room whether invited or not. So what happens? You tie your self-worth to an external result, then live in anxiety while waiting for a verdict from the world. That is not discipline. That is dependency. The Stoic alternative is not to stop striving. It is to relocate the goal. Instead of saying, I must get the promotion, you say, I will prepare exceptionally, communicate with clarity, solve real problems, and carry myself with self-respect. Instead of, I need this person to choose me, you say, I will show up with honesty, standards, courage, and emotional steadiness. Instead of, this launch has to work, you say, I will build well, test well, learn fast, and keep refining. Do you hear the difference? One version begs for an outcome. The other builds a standard. This shift matters because it changes your entire nervous system. When your goal is internal, you stop living as though every external result is a final judgment on your value. You become less frantic, more precise. You take feedback without collapsing. You lose without becoming smaller. You win without becoming arrogant. You stay in motion. And ironically, this is often the exact moment better external results begin to show up. Why? Because people who are not desperate perform better. They speak better. They negotiate better. They see reality better. They are less likely to overtext, overexplain, overpromise, overchase, and overreact. They stop leaking energy into fear and start investing it into execution. This is one of the most practical forms of Stoic power. It does not make you passive. It makes you harder to destabilize. So internalize the goal. Let the world keep its verdicts. Your task is to become the kind of person who can act well regardless of applause, delay, silence, rejection, or uncertainty. Rule 3: use the obstacle. Something is going to go wrong. Something already has. A message will be ignored. A plan will stall. A betrayal will expose itself late. A deal will collapse after you have already pictured the future. A season you thought would reward you may instead strip you down to the nerve. This is where most people become bitter or theatrical. They ask, "Why is this happening to me?" They take the obstacle as proof that they are cursed, unlucky, unseen, or doomed. Or they do something even worse. They break themselves trying to preserve a fantasy that reality is already asking them to release. Marcus Aurelius refused that posture. His line is famous because it is true: the obstacle becomes the way. Not the interruption to the way. The way. That changes everything. Because now failure is no longer just pain. It is information. Delay is no longer only frustration. It is training. Loss is no longer only destruction. It is revelation. Think about how often clarity arrives only after disappointment. The relationship ends, and suddenly you see how much of yourself you abandoned just to keep the peace. The job falls apart, and suddenly you realize how much identity you had tied to a system that would have replaced you in a week. The betrayal happens, and suddenly your ability to read character becomes sharper than before. The humiliation comes, and for the first time in years you stop living for appearances. No one wants these moments while they are inside them. I understand that. Sometimes the obstacle does not feel like wisdom. It feels like collapse. It feels like shock. It feels like the floor leaving your body. But even there, Stoicism does not ask you to smile falsely. It asks you to use what happened. This is where a slightly darker truth about society also matters. Many people do not reveal who they are when things are easy. They reveal who they are when your usefulness changes. When you need support. When you stop performing. When your shine dims. When there is no social advantage in standing beside you. Hard seasons do not only test you. They expose the structure of the world around you. And that is painful, yes. But it is also a gift if you are willing to see it. So when life blocks you, ask better questions. What is this teaching me about people? About my own weakness? About my standards? About my patterns? About the skills I still need? About the illusions I can no longer afford? That question turns pain into material. You do not have to enjoy the obstacle. But you can refuse to waste it. Rule 4: Anticipate the fall. Most people call themselves positive when in reality they are just unprepared. They do not want to think about what could go wrong because they assume avoiding the thought will protect them from the feeling. It does not. It usually makes the fear worse. What you refuse to examine does not disappear. It hides in the body. It becomes tension, hesitation, indecision, emotional volatility, half-commitment. The Stoics had a practice for this, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of difficulties. Before something important, imagine the setback clearly. The interview might fail. The person may leave. The investment may not return. The launch may disappoint. Your reputation may be misunderstood. The answer may be no. Not because you are manifesting disaster, but because you are rehearsing steadiness. This has saved many people more suffering than they realize. Because fear feeds on vagueness. It becomes huge in the dark. But when you name the possibility and walk through it honestly, the shadow loses mass. Ask yourself, if this falls apart, what will I do next? If they reject me, how will I hold myself? If I lose this opportunity, what remains true about me? If the worst realistic outcome happens, do I disappear, or do I adapt? Most of the time, the answer is humbling and strengthening at once. Would hurt, yes. I would grieve, yes. But I would not end. That realization returns enormous power. Seneca said we suffer more in imagination than in reality. How many people never start the business, never have the conversation, never tell the truth, never leave what is clearly wrong, never risk being seen, because they are secretly governed by an unnamed catastrophe in their mind. Premeditation breaks that spell. It also makes you calmer in a society obsessed with image control. Because once you have mentally walked through embarrassment, rejection, delay, or loss, you are much less easy to manipulate. You are no longer living under the tyranny of, "But what if this makes me look bad?" You start valuing what is real over what is flattering. That is freedom. So sit with your fear before life forces you to meet it in daylight. Not dramatically. Not obsessively. Just honestly. The more clearly you see the fall, the more steadily you can walk. Rule 5. Use death as fuel. You are going to die. The modern mind tries not to sit with that sentence for very long. It distracts itself. Scrolls. Buys. Plans. Avoids. Numbs. Performs. Compares. Complains. Delays. But the truth remains where it has always been, waiting behind every calendar and every excuse. You are going to die. And so am I. And everyone whose opinion keeps intimidating you is going to die too. This is not meant to depress you. It is meant to wake you up. Memento mori was one of the Stoics' sharpest tools because death clarifies faster than comfort ever will. It strips nonsense down to bone. It asks what matters when performance ends. It exposes how much of life gets wasted in hesitation, resentment, vanity, and emotional negotiations with people who are themselves confused, temporary, and afraid. Think about the things you keep postponing. The apology. The boundary. The creative work. The honest decision. The healthier life. The call home. The truth you keep swallowing. The version of yourself you keep saying you will become once the timing is better. Better according to whom? Marcus Aurelius returned to death often, not because he was morbid, but because he wanted proportion. When death is remembered, pettiness gets smaller. Delay becomes harder to justify. False priorities lose their grip. And something in you becomes more sincere. This is especially necessary now, when so many people live in curated unreality. Entire lives are built around looking alive rather than being alive. Looking successful rather than doing meaningful work. Looking desirable rather than becoming trustworthy. Looking powerful rather than mastering the self. It is all performance until something real enters the room: illness, loss, aging, grief, time. And time always wins. So let death help you. Let it cut through the fog. If your days are limited, why keep asking permission from people who are also lost? Why keep rehearsing conversations you never have? Why keep shrinking yourself to fit rooms that only reward pretending? Why spend another year proving your value to people committed to misunderstanding you? Memento mori is not an invitation to recklessness. It is an invitation to honesty. To urgency without panic. To depth without drama. To action without endless self-betrayal. Remember death, and life becomes less theoretical. It becomes immediate. Specific. Sacred. Rule 6. Build the inner citadel. Everything we have talked about leads here. Strip the glamour. Internalize the goal. Use the obstacle. Anticipate the fall. Remember death. What do all of these practices create when repeated long enough? An inner citadel. Pierre had used that phrase when writing about Marcus Aurelius, and it remains one of the most beautiful and severe images in Stoic philosophy. The inner citadel is the part of you no crowd can vote on, no betrayal can erase, no delay can invalidate, and no humiliation can permanently occupy unless you surrender it. This does not mean you stop feeling pain. It means pain no longer becomes your ruler. A person without an inner citadel is emotionally outsourced. Their peace depends on text messages, praise, momentum, validation, market conditions, romantic certainty, public image, and the temporary behavior of other people. They are constantly negotiating for permission to feel okay. That is exhausting. And it makes them easy to control. A person with an inner citadel still feels loss, disappointment, embarrassment, grief, and pressure. But they are not ruled by them. Their center of gravity is internal. They know what they value. They know what they stand for. They know how to return to themselves. That return is everything. Because life will not stop testing you. People will still disappoint you. Some will admire you in public and resent you in private. Some will clap when you rise and vanish when you struggle. Some will say they value honesty until your honesty inconveniences them. Some systems will reward appearance over substance. Some seasons will ask more from you than feels fair. The Stoic answer is not naivety. It is construction. Brick by brick, choice by choice, response by response, you build a self that can endure contact with reality. Every time you refuse to chase someone who is feeding on your uncertainty, you add a stone. Every time you act well without needing immediate reward, you add a stone. Every time you meet disappointment without turning it into self-hatred, you add a stone. Every time you tell the truth, keep your standard, regulate your fear, and return to principle, you add a stone. That is how the fortress is built. Not in one breakthrough. Not in one perfect week. Not in one video. But in repeated inner decisions that slowly make you harder to seduce with illusion and harder to destroy with circumstance. So here is the real message beneath all 6 rules. You do not get everything you want by wanting harder. You get closer to what is right for you by becoming someone who is no longer mastered by fantasy, fear, external verdicts, or emotional dependence. And from that place, your actions become cleaner. Your standards become clearer. Your relationships become more honest. Your ambition becomes less needy and more effective. Your peace becomes less fragile. Your life stops feeling like a chase and starts feeling like a construction. That is what people can feel when they say someone has presence. That is what they sense when a person enters the room without trying to dominate it. That is what they notice when someone has been through loss but did not become hollow. Inner architecture. So if your life has felt noisy lately, if society has made you feel behind, disposable, replaceable, overstimulated, emotionally manipulated, or starved for something real, start here. Strip the glamour from what you chase. Bring your goals back into your control. Use hardship as material. Look directly at what you fear. Remember that time is short. And build what cannot be taken from within. That is the Stoic path. Not passive. Not weak. Not detached from life. Deeply engaged, but no longer owned by it. And maybe that is the real rebellion in a fake world, to become inwardly unbuyable. If this reached you at the right moment, leave this in the comments. I am building. Not as a slogan. As a decision. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe to StoicCraft and stay with this practice. Because this kind of strength is not built in one sitting. It is built in daily contact with truth. Thank you for being here.